right, thank you for staying with Citizen TV's Monday Report. We're talking about the lecturers' strike. They're back with me in studio, Professor Kamau Ngamau, the VC Cooperative University and the alternate spokesperson, IPUCCF-JNC, that is the Interpublic Universities Council's Consultative Forum. Thank you for making time. And Dr. Maloba Wekesa, KUSU Chapter Secretary, University of Nairobi. Thank you very much for making time. Dr. Charles Mukwaya, the Secretary KUSU, sent in his apology, says that they are currently locked in a conversation with the government to resolve this stalemate. First of all, are you aware of this conversation, Dr. Wekesa, that there is ongoing negotiations right now?
Yes, we're always aware, and let it also be clear. The inability to negotiate is on the fault of the government. We have always wanted to negotiate, conclude, and get on with our business at the university. So yes, we are aware, and in as much as it might look like a positive move, well, let's wait for the outcome.
You don't think there's anything that is going to yield from this?
No, I'm not going to make any speculative guesses right now. We are optimists. Okay. We always look forward for a brighter future for tomorrow, so let's see what it can actually give us.
What are the absolutely reducible minimums that you need to get before you call off this strike?
Now, first, let me just try and recoup up a couple of things for today first, before I can come to the reducible minimums. I want to first thank our members, KUSU members, for being steadfast in this quest. They have actually obeyed what the union has wanted them to do and withdrawn their labor. I also want to take this opportunity to congratulate our students for being patient. I want them to realize one thing: learning at the university is also about understanding governance. And this strike is actually course unit 101 on labor relations. And we also want to take umbrage as a third thing. We take umbrage to the manner our police were used today. Lecturers are a peaceful lot. If you go even to the IPOA index, you will see that whenever we say we want to make to present a petition somewhere, we are extremely gentle in the way we do it. We simply move to one office, give out whatever the petition is, come, address the media, and that's it. The manner the police are being used is unfair. And it is extremely embarrassing because some of them are our students. But I want also to take this opportunity to thank the OCPD Central. Doris, she was really good in terms of making sure that most of those things. Okay, then, what are the reducible minimums? Number one, prompt and timely negotiation, registration, and full implementation of CBS, internal and national. And number two, that the government must fully absorb the cost of payrolls of universities. This idea that lecturers should actually contribute money to their own payrolls is ridiculous. It doesn't add up. I don't think there's any sector in government where you are told, now go and also give us part of, generate monies for your payroll. And number three, harmonization of allowances across public universities. And we have been saying this time without number. Number four, a seamless transition process for staff promotions. Because there are some councils who come and play a trick to university lecturers. I want to actually make this very clear. When you are given a chance to be a council member, council chair, it's an honor. It is not an extraction industry. You are joining a community of the most brilliant minds. You don't come there and pretend now that suddenly you have gotten extremely bright because of your political appointment. It is ridiculous, and stymieing those promotions is extremely bad for the staff who spent their lives there. And lastly, we need to increase staff ratios. The acceptable staff ratio worldwide is 1 to 30 students. The whole idea that we have been multiplying universities and then at the end of the day spreading the lecturers so thinly is actually affecting them. We want a situation where we are able to provide quality education. And by quality education, we need more staff to be employed at the university. And I'm talking mostly about the academic staff who are the engine, they are the cog who run the university.
Okay. Prof, is it possible to get all this irreducible minimums that Dr. Wekesa is talking about? Let's even start with the first one, full implementation of the CBAs.
Thank you, Trevor. Implementation of the CBAs is based upon provision of the resources, and this is advised by the National Treasury through SRC. And it is when the resources have been released that this can be implemented. And what I would wish to say is that once the funds are released, it shall be implemented without any delay.
Okay. Did you have a deal that you failed to have implemented? Because I see here one of the demands is that there's a 2013, 2017, 2017, 2021, 2021, 2025 cycles that they say was negotiated partly with IPU-CCF.
The 2017-2021 CBA was concluded. The only challenge with that CBA was that what was provided then did not fully cover the CBA, and that is a discussion that is still on. But most universities have been able to settle whatever arose from that, and therefore we have now been negotiating on the 2021-2025 CBA.
So what happens to the rest?
The discussion is still there because...
Just ignore or move on?
No, that discussion is still there with the SRC because the issue has been that the computation was done in such a way that left a gap. And what the universities have been trying to do is to see whether that the resources that were required for full implementation can be released to the universities. There was a pension component which is still outstanding, and also some a component which was to take care of the annual increments, which was not provided at the moment.
So how long will these negotiations go on when we can clearly see that a CBA that was agreed 7 years ago is not implemented to date? What are the guarantees that the 2021-2025 one will be implemented? Or is it just a game of going round in circles?
The challenge at that point was in the computation, but in this cycle, it has been clear what has been provided is supposed to cater fully for all aspects, including the annual increments and the pension component.
Okay.
Yes.
I was hoping that we'd go through all the 5, but it seems even the first one you will not agree. So there's no way that there's going to be a full implementation of the CBAs like the unions are demanding. Is that what you're saying?
What we're saying is that the universities obtain resources from the National Treasury. So as soon as the funds are released for the CBA, already for the 2021-2025 CBA, the government committed 1.6 billion, and which the union said is not adequate. We appealed to the government to provide additional resources, and the Cabinet Secretary, Ministry of Education and Inner Communication to the unions has committed that they will provide additional resources so that the cadres who did not get an increment can get a modest increment. And that communication has been made to the unions.
Okay. Dr. Wekesa, are you being reasonable to demand the full implementation of the CBAs, whereas you're aware of the fiscal space that everyone is operating in?
Before I even go to whether I'm reasonable or not, let me first try and rebut 2 things. Number one, Professor has said that there's a question about resources. Now, I want it to be very clear. There is no government in this world which has ever admitted it has resources to do anything. No. None whatsoever. In fact, it will be very strange if a government said, you know what, we have money. What do you want to get? So always, money is about lobbying. Money is about budgeting. We pay taxes. Kenyans pay taxes. Simply allocate these resources in an equitable manner, and money will be found. And number 2, you can't claim that a CBA has been concluded and then in the same breath claim again that there is still a discussion going on. This is a double speak that we are talking about. This is not possible. You can't say we have actually concluded, but then there is a discussion. It means that CBA has not what? Been concluded. Now let's go to where we are reasonable. I can assure you, a CBA is not a magic potion which you dream out in the air and come with figures. No. A CBA, you sit down and look at various indices. We actually even depend upon a government agency called the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics, and we look for things like the cost of living, the cost, the consumer index. And we also look at the inflation depreciation, and we simply bandy those together and say, if you want to have the same basket value of money which you were having last year for the to the following year, then you need this amount of money for you to cushion the person who is employed. It's as simple as that. And this is the reason why even our case was actually taken to the Economic Division of the High Court. The government ran away because it is not possible for them to explain the kind of figures they are actually banding around. And this is where the reasonableness comes in. Because we have told them, you know what? You gave public workers out there between 7 and 10. Why can't you match that first? This is how reasonable we are. Why can't you match that? We have also told them, look, the last time you reviewed our house allowance was way back in 2008. How many years ago right now? Close to 15. You tell me a house that costed in 2008 up to right now, 2024, how much does it cost? So when you go and the government tells you, no, don't add this money, I don't think you should. Can they be reasonable the way we are reasonable? And I can assure you, lecturers are one of the most docile people when it comes to sitting down with them, talking to them, because apparently we do understand. Okay. But then, the moment it actually zeroes in that there is a perfunctory nature by which you want to operate, you want to look so busy, but there's zero you're actually doing. This is where now we get infuriated.
But in your same argument, Daktari, how do you implement the CBAs that you're now demanding full implementation of, whereas the negotiations has not been concluded? So what are you implementing?
Well, this is exactly why IPUCCF needs to answer this question. Why did they even go to court? When the CBA was being implemented, why did they rush to court? Because we wanted to conclude this. This is the bad faith. Okay. You see that? The bad faith being actually taken out to the lecturers. And I want to say this. Here is the worst part about government. It's that brinkmanship in creating a crisis. Government wants to look like it is doing something. So what does it do? It creates a crisis. So that then you can see people really moving around. It looks like they're actually doing some work. But why do you have to create a crisis? Okay. Brinkmanship is what we also do not go to.
Okay.
Yes.
Let me bring in Prof on this. Prof, was the IPUCCF acting in bad faith? And is this a crisis of your making?
IPUCCF has not acted in bad faith. We have been in negotiation with the unions. In the collective bargaining negotiations, the union brings a proposal, then the IPUCCF, as the employer, does a counter proposal, which it submits to SRC for advice. And as you are aware, SRC advice is binding, but before it can be able to give the SRC, the counter proposal, we must consult government because we are part of the government so that the government can be able to advise whether these resources are available. And it is only at that point that we are able to then submit this counter proposal to the SRC. SRC has advised, and in their advice dated the 21st June, they made various proposals, which we presented to the unions. The unions were happy with the sum for the grade 14 and 15, where 7% was offered. increment in salary, basic salary. But for the other lower grades, because of what SRC referred to as the gross market positioning, which they had considered, they made either lower or they did not offer an increment to some of the lower grades, especially in grade 1 all the way to grade 9 and then 11 and 12. So after we have discussed, we had discussed with the unions, and they said they were not very happy with that position. We again appealed to the SRC and through the government, because we are part of government, and in a bid to cushion those who did not get any increment. And the government agreed to give them some small amount. And the government agreed to give them some small amount so that they can also be cushioned. And this was again submitted to the SRC. So what we are saying is that we have done our part, and the union, of course, they may not still be satisfied with, in order to see how we can work together with the unions, because we all belong to the universities and we want them to succeed. We don't want them to fail.
Okay.
Yes, so we did not, it was not in bad faith going to the court. It was not in bad faith. We were still in negotiation, and of course, the employer has an important role to ensure that the institutions continue to serve.
Okay, Dr. Wekesa, Prof says they've bent over backwards, and they even gave you a proposal for 7% increment. Why did you refuse that?
Now, let's try and dissect this one by one. When you say bad faith, you need evidentiary support. Where is the bad faith? We submitted a CBA in September of 2020. Why did it take 3 years for the government even to move a muscle? Where is the good faith? When someone sees your proposal and for 36 plus months, nothing has happened. So how can they claim bad faith? Because we only have to look at evidentiary support. And number two, you know, when Professor says that unions are happy, you know, that statement misses the forest by the trees. There is nothing to be happy about when you are dealing with an intransigent employer, an employer who is only hell-bent in either slowing and throwing sand into the gears and ensuring that nothing really moves. And lastly, Professor has kept mentioning SRC. I don't know if you're aware, Professor, that in the last ILO meeting, Kenya was actually reported in ILO, and specifically cited was SRC. SRC specifically being a body that continuously is a stumbling block in the negotiations. In fact, in our estimation, and I think this now goes back to how we configured the Constitution, SRC has actually taken a role that it is the government's union. So when you want to agree on something, then SRC sometimes steps in. But here is the worst bad faith. Sometimes let us not also blame SRC. I can assure you, whenever we want to negotiate, it is our vice chancellors who tell SRC, don't add these people any money. You know why? Because vice chancellors negotiate their contracts independently. And they write statements to SRC so that SRC has no wiggle room. It says, if the IPCCF has said we should not increase any money, what do we have to do? So the game goes on. They blame SRC. SRC, whenever we go for negotiations, we find out the truth is, it is actually IPCCF that is the bad dog here. It is the one which is actually giving out these whistles to SRC, which bounces it back.
Okay.
This is the bad faith we are talking about, and it has to stop. When we say we want to negotiate and we want to get a good deal, why can't we actually put all the cards on the table?
Okay.
Why are there knives always under the table?
Prof, I'll give you a chance to respond to that because you've been directly accused. Is the IPUCCF the sellouts plus the VCs? You're a VC yourself.
I wish to categorically mention that VCs have not been the people who have maybe been the problem. In fact, they have really tried very hard to facilitate the negotiations. One of the things that is required when you are giving SRC the proposal, the counter proposals, you have to attach the proposal, you are supposed to attach the counter proposal, and you must provide evidence that there are resources to cover that increment. And the universities do not have resources of their own. So we must go to the government through our ministry, our parent ministry, and we request for the additional resources. And we table all the different parameters, and we tell them, yes, if we make this kind of offer, this is how much it is going to. And it is only at the point when we get go ahead from the ministry that we are able to submit this to SRC. So if we are not given any additional resources, then it makes our work very difficult. But as I said, in the previous counter offer that we presented to the SRC, there was increment for all categories from grade 1 to grade 20, or grade 15, sorry. And secondly, even for the house allowance. Okay. And it was only after that that SRC advised. Then on the issue of VCs negotiating their packs, no, that is not the case. It may have been in the past, but that is no longer the case.
Okay. Dr. Wekesa, so how does this all end? Because we seem to be locked in
yes, we are locked. And I always want to, like I said, dissect issue by issue. You know, when the VC says they are trying very hard, of course, that is just a statement. From the comfort, from the creature comforts of being a VC, you're driven into the university, you don't pay for your fuel. You go into an air-conditioned office. I mean, you have all the things available to you that can actually make sure that your work feels softer. When you say you're trying too hard from that patch. And number two, we go back again to what you asked me here, which are your bare minimums. He has said, you know what, when we go to government, we tell them, you know what, we don't have this money. I don't know. Why are the VCs going to even advise us? This is a public institution. It should be funded from taxpayers' money. Why are they even having that option that, you know what, we might have some money here and there? Why? Why? And you see, the thing is this. When I said government should absorb the full cost of payrolls to the university, it would remove them from this struggle they are having with the universities. Why can't you just say it? Tell them the way you are financing institutions out there, like say the Kenya police, the military, wherever, no one is going there and saying, you know what, let us also, you know, to changie kidogo. No, no one is saying that. Why are the vice chancellors taking it up to themselves to say all that? And this is where the problem is. And I go back again. Those bare minimums, look at them, look at how we are prosecuting our matter, and consider that the lecturers have waited, and now we are only having months before 2025, the lapse of the CBA again. Remember, 2017, 2021, not fully what? Implemented. They even went to court. We have arrears piling up. Now we are in 2024. We are going to 2025. We are still bickering. The quibbling goes on. And you know what? Like I said, create a crisis. Then seem as if you are actually what? Doing something to settle out the crisis. Yeah. We need to stop this. No. Trevor, it is high time everyone in Kenya understood one thing. University lecturers do not in any way and any form enjoy in being in this situation. Okay. I prefer being in my research class. I don't want to be seen out there looking like I'm clowning around because we are clamoring for peanuts from the government. No. The government just, and there are actually instruments, by the way. If we had time, I would have actually taken you through something called the STI Act. It is already in our books.
Yeah.
The government simply needs to allocate 2% of its GDP and give it to universities. This whole thing about pensions, and it happens so often.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry to say, the cycle is such that first, the strike will be that come and negotiate. 2, we'll strike again to implement, even just to register, we'll strike again. To implement, it will be another thing, again another strike. And by the time they implement, someone throws again some, spanner into the works.
Yeah.
They go into court, like you can see right now, 2017, 2021, in abeyance. Now we are 2024, we are moving to 2025, nothing has happened.
Okay.
This has to stop.
So Prof, how does this all end? How can this industrial action be stopped once and for all? How can it all end?
I think maybe before I come to that, I would want to maybe just mention one of the issues that has been mentioned by my colleague. This is about the government bearing the full cost of the payroll. I think that discussion should be in another forum, not under a CBA, because I think it requires discussion and it's a policy decision. And I think it is misplaced when you bring it in this CBA negotiation. So I think there are a number of issues which they have mentioned, some of which may take longer. He talked about the issue of harmonization of allowances. Again, you need to understand the background. How did those allowances vary in the different institutions? This is because in the past, the IPUCCF only negotiated the basic salary and the house allowances at national level. All the others were negotiated at the local level, at each branch, at the universities. And it was based on the ability of the institution to be able to afford.
Yeah.
And because of that, there was a big disparity.
Okay.
In 2019, the universities signed a new recognition agreement with the unions, in which now these items which were being negotiated at the local level would now be also negotiated at the national level. And this is the first cycle where this matter is being discussed.
Okay.
And the universities, through the IPUCCF, submitted all these allowances to the SRC for advice. And SRC has already advised.
Okay.
And they have said that for these allowances, that they should be retained and they will be progressively reviewed. Because there's going to be a very huge financial implication, in fact, probably higher than even the salaries. And this can therefore, considering the fiscal space that we are in, they may not be possible to be brought in during this cycle.
Okay.
So going forward now is, I think, let us be able to focus on the clear issues, which is basically on the CBA 2021-2025, where we have been the main key contention, even at the point where we went, this impasse came in, was on the basic salary. And then the other issues, as advised by SRC, they can be reviewed progressively. We had even come up with a schedule on how this can be done.
Okay.
And the unions were, at least KUSU, was quite happy with that proposal. Okay. So I think they can be resolved. They are not too difficult, but I think they need to be addressed in the right forum.
All right, just 1 minute each for closing remarks, and Dr. Wekesa, I'll start with you. So how long will you stay on strike then?
I always need to rebut first. Number one, Prof is being a little disingenuous here. KUSU is actually trying to help them by them saying, we want the government to finance this payroll. This is the help. Take help when you can see it, Prof. That is what we are trying to tell you. And number two, this CBA 2021-2025 was supposed to cure the allowances, he says, are actually disparate. That is what it was meant to cure, so that we can start on a slate, which going forward will actually have a harmonized patch. And here are my closing remarks. University lecturers across Kenya do not need to always be in this cycle of industrial unrest. We want to make sure that the knowledge economy that this country is actually aspiring to, we should actually be able to contribute. And we actually want to do it in a manner that will actually change the fortunes of the country. Allow us to do this with some dignity. Allow our members not to go through the pecuniary embarrassments that they continuously have to face, whether it is about the statutory deductions which are made and not remitted, whether it's about their pensions which are not funded so that their futures are insecure, whether it is about their dignity just to be able to go to work and actually to be able to attend to their duties like any other normal Kenyan. Now, I want you also to remember one thing. Yeah. The disparity that has been created has a historical overlay. Since independence, you can actually go through the history and you will realize where was the university professor placed in his payment. Remember, this is the highest trained professional in the country. Where was he? And it was actually at par with the permanent secretary. What really went wrong? What has happened in a situation where you kept eroding the quality of the life of the lecturer while still demanding that he must be able to do his work without any recourse? This must be done. Thank you, Trevor.
Prof, closing remarks?
Thank you, Trevor. In closing, I wish to, first of all, appreciate you have reported that Dr. Mukwaya, KUSU SG, was in the ministry in discussion concerning this matter. I want to appreciate the Cabinet Secretary, who is new in this docket. He has just come in, and he's really working very hard to try and resolve this crisis. And as universities, we really want to work together with the ministry to see how we can be able to resolve. And he has already given a proposal, and I would wish to advise the unions to accept this so that we can be able to address these immediate issues as we look at the others, which will require some longer-term solutions. Thank you.
Is KUSU in this meeting, by the way? Or is just KUSU?
Yes, KUSU is in that meeting. Like I told you, we are ready to ban the midnight oil. Sorry about that. We are ready to ban the midnight oil. Yeah. We just need to deliver on this so that we can walk away from the whole thing.
All right. Thank you so much for making time, gentlemen. Professor Kamau Ngamau, VC, Cooperative University and Alternative Spokesperson, IPUCCF, JNC, and Dr. Maloba Wekesa, KUSU Chapter Secretary, University of Nairobi. Asanteni sana for making time. We're taking a quick break. When we come back, it's time for some sports now. Don't go too far.